It says, "Therefore, as you have received Christ Jesus the Lord, so walk in him, rooted and built up in him, and established in the faith, just as you were taught, abounding in thanksgiving. See to it that no one takes you captive by philosophy and empty deceit, according to human tradition, according to the elemental spirits of the world, and not according to Christ." So I love these verses because they remind us not just why we should be in him, but what we should be doing. Just as a little side note, in verse 7, he says, abounding in thanksgiving. Paul is writing this from prison to a church, right? And so he's telling them to abound in thanksgiving, even though he himself is sitting in a prison behind a jail cell. Now, they don't have, like, Judge Mathis on TV and, like, a three-course meal at this kind of prison. This is not the kind of environment that would be really conducive to abounding in thanksgiving. And yet he is reminding other Christians to abound in thanksgiving, he himself having every reason to look back and honestly say, pray for me, this is really difficult, and that sort of thing. He reminds them, listen, we need to abound in thanksgiving because of what Christ has done in us. And so the first thing is to walk in him. In verse 6, as you have received Christ Jesus the Lord, so walk in him. I think we struggle with this idea of what it means to walk in him. I love that we worship a God who doesn't say, hey, get your hair fixed up, get your suit just right, make sure that everything looks good, and then come to me, because that's the kind of God that I am. I need you to bring your best. God says, come to me, you who are weary. Come to me, you who are broken. Come to me, you who are hurting. And God says, I love you just where you are. And I love you too much to let you stay there. He says, walk with me. Come with me. And there's this idea that we need to walk with Jesus. Are there any runners in the room? Some runners? A couple of them? Not many runners over here in South Carolina, all right? That's good, though. There's a couple in here. So my wife loves to run. That's kind of one of her things. You can look at me and tell that I don't like to run, all right? That's pretty obvious from the get-go. But I'm not a runner, and I never really understood it. In fact, my thing is, like, if I see somebody run down the road, I feel like I ought to just pull up next to them and ask them if they need a ride somewhere. Just seems really awkward to be like, I can get you there much quicker if you just hop in here, right? And even my wife likes to hike and that sort of thing, and I would love to just drive to the top of that mountain and encourage her to come on up. You can do it, babe. I'm a great husband. I want to do that. But that's not my thing, okay? I'm not I'm not what you call outdoorsy, right? I'm indoorsy, all right? And so I get that. But Mel is the opposite. She wanted to be a park ranger growing up, so we could not be more different, all right? And I even share people. I'm Scott-Irish, and so I wake up angry, okay? And Mel smiles in her sleep, all right? So, and she'll laugh in her sleep, which can be awkward at times because you're like, what's going on? Why is she laughing in her sleep, and what kind of plotting is going on at this moment? But we could not be more different. But if Mel were to come to me at the end of the day and say, Pat, I want to go for a walk, right? As her husband who loves her, in the back of my mind, what's really going on is no, can we just sit here and maybe have a hot chocolate, right? But if I love her and I want to know my wife and I want to love my wife, then I will walk with her. And so, Mel, you know what my heart is, though, right? But I will walk with her. And guys, maybe we all need to hear that a little bit, that if we want to love our wives, we're willing to go out of our way, we're willing to step out of our comfort zone to let them know that we love them. But for me, to put this in illustration of how we need to walk with Jesus, he doesn't call us to the easy places. He calls us to hard places. He calls us out of our comfort zones. He calls us to difficult spots and says, walk with me. It'd be really easy if he said, hey, walk with me, you're going to make $1 million this year, right? But sometimes God might say, walk with me, you need to give away $1 million this year. God calls us to difficult places in life, and we need to walk with him. We need